Happy Asexual Day! That's right, I finally worked out when in the calendar year it is to give me a third excuse to talk about my asexuality. And my bookcase is taller now, so I can stand while recording a video. For the longest time, I've wanted to work out a way to connect my asexuality with fantasy, because it is literally in like my channel subtag, otherworldly author. Talking about my asexuality is the only time that I have gone consistently off my otherworldly author brand. Until now. Well, it's sort of fantasy, but it's also a little bit of history. Today I'm going to talk to you about the goddesses that made asexuality cool. I am never doing that again. To talk about this, we're going to have to make a lot of assumptions and draw a lot of conclusions going forward. That's because although the term asexual was first seen in writing back in 1897, that's not the first time that asexuality existed as a concept. Like many other sexualities, there is evidence to suggest that other non-heterosexualities existed in ancient Greece and Rome. And all we have to do to identify these aces is to look at their pantheon of gods. Today we're looking at three of them, the virgin goddesses: Artemis, Athena, and Hestia. Each of these three Greek goddesses, and likely their Roman counterparts, took vows to swore off having sex with men. But was it just an oath of celibacy for the sake of prosperity or sacrifice, or was it an actual sexuality and a part of their being? Let's find out. You should also check out this video by Hestia, which I will link in the description, which led me to diving deeper into this sort of idea. Athena. Athena was famously born asexual when Zeus ate her birth mother and she had to be birthed out of his head. She declared her vow of virginity shortly after her birth and became an icon of Greek mythology to this day. Her birth, followed shortly by her vow, have been the main reason that people have suspected Athena to be asexual by modern standards. Plus, although Athena is a goddess, she was masculine presenting. This has led many people to argue that Athena was an ancient genderqueer. Her domain was both masculine and feminine. She was the goddess of war, but also the goddess of crafts. It is more common than you think for people who identify as a third gender to identify as asexual as well. And some asexuals consider their gender identity and their asexuality to be intrinsically linked and inseparable. You could apply this lens to Athena, who breaks gender norms, thus could also break sexual norms. It was also believed that Athena's lack of sexual ambition was tied to her power. Many Athenians and scholars believed that if she were to lose her maidenhood, she would also lose the power that she held over her domains and as an Olympian goddess. And boy, did many try to take it from her who were gods and mortals. Surprisingly, not her father Zeus. Hephaestus, for instance, wanted to try and make sexual advances on her when she was wanting to just have his help making weapons. Some interpretations say that Athena asked Hephaestus for what payment she owed him. He said that she owed him her love. She thought it was platonic love. Let me tell you from personal experience, nobody is able to tell the difference between a flirt and a compliment like someone on the ace or aro spectrum. This Athena-Hephaestus myth and her birth seem to be the main reasons that people associate her with being asexual today. Artemis. Artemis was the Greek goddess of the hunt. She swore off men shortly after the birth of her twin brother Apollo, and she is also known for her famous group of hunters, who also take a vow to swear off men like her. Now the thing with Artemis is that a lot of these interpretations surrounding her swearing off men and the hunters of Artemis have led many to believe that she was a lesbian, because she did say she swore off men, but she didn't swear off women. I'm not fully sold on this just because of the etymology of the word man. Man describes from the Sanskrit word manu, meaning humankind. It was not specifically used for males until around 1000 BC. Therefore, in Greek texts, man could have meant a male, but it could have also meant humans. beings as a whole. However, her vow of virginity could still mean that Artemis may have had some romantic attraction, which some people argue she did have with a hunter friend called Orion. But another myth that leads me to believing that Artemis is asexual is one surrounding sex repulsion. In a myth involving one of Artemis's hunters, Callisto, Zeus does what Zeus does best and disguises himself to have sex with another woman. What Zeus looks like varies between tellings. Some say that he's remained a male, some say he looked like a girl, some say he even took on Artemis's appearance. Furthermore, there's differences in retellings as to whether Callisto gave consent or not. Regardless, this makes Callisto pregnant, and she has to hide her pregnancy. But when she cannot hide it any longer and has to confess to Artemis that Zeus had sex with her and she became pregnant, Artemis becomes furious and kicks Callisto out of the hunters. It upset Artemis because it broke the vow of chastity that the girls had. Furthermore, and this could just be my modern lens because we don't know if the ancient Greeks had a conception of rape or not, Artemis was mad at Callisto even if she didn't give consent. This to me reads as an extreme and out there form of sex repulsion. Sex repulsion is a trait that many people within the asexual community may have, and it can look like different things for different people. For some people it means they don't want anything sexual at all. For me, my repulsion revolves around a discomfort of any kind of sexual or pornographic fiction, and also lots of boundaries with what I am happy with sexually. This is not a trait that all asexuals have, but I'd argue in the case of Artemis that her showing this sex repulsive moment is showing her asexuality. Hestia. Hestia is the goddess of the hearth and home and was one of the first gods born. But as a newborn, her father, the Titan Kronos, having heard that one of his children would overthrow him, ate her. When Kronos was defeated and she was no longer in the stomach of a Titan, she ended up becoming the goddess of the hearth. Two Olympian gods wanted to become her partner in some form, Poseidon and Apollo. She denied both of them and after that asked for consent from Zeus for her to also take a vow of chastity like Athena and Artemis, to which he accepted. Why she did this is up to debate, with some asexual leaning and some non-asexual leaning interpretations. The first interpretation is that she simply did not have any kind of feelings for either of those gods. The second is that she thought war was going to break out because whoever she rejected would be after the other. And the third interpretation is that she didn't want to have a relationship because of how often she had seen complicated relationships break up around her. Greek mythology is filled with lots of family betrayal if you haven't checked it out. During early stages of asexuality in modern society, many considered asexuality to be a result of family or sexual trauma. While that is one way someone can be asexual, it is not the defined way that somebody is asexual. So it is likely that Hestia felt this way because, you know, her dad ate her and then her mum hated that he ate her and she ended up being the catalyst for Kronos' ultimate death. And what is interesting is that through the respect that Hestia had, people who followed her path were also deeply respected. Vestal virgins are the main example. They were named after Vesta, Hestia's Roman counterpart. These were all young girls chosen before they went to puberty to work in Hestia's temples and be her acolytes. They had to swear off sexual relations and were punished if they ever got caught in sexual acts. However, very few of these acolytes were actually punished or caught doing these acts, giving the impression that they were very obedient or didn't want to engage in these acts. Furthermore, a Vestal virgin could get the option after 30 years of service to leave the temple and to get married. Very few of them, though, actually did. They must have grown to not want any kind of partner. Vestals were granted sovereign over themselves, only bound to the laws of the temple and of the Pontifex Maximus. They even held rights that the average Roman did not, such as being women who were allowed to own land. They could pardon someone from being executed just by attending. These could potentially be the most powerful asexual people in all of history, just because of how they were also tied to an asexual goddess. However, it was unclear whether the Vestal virgins' asexuality was forced upon them through religion and religious practices, or whether the pontifex, when they chose these women, actually knew pre-puberty or as they were going through puberty whether someone was asexual or not. The flaw. Ultimately, there is one main counter-argument to the three virgin goddesses being asexual. These weren't real people, so we weren't able to get, like, you know, actual record or personal stories about them, but we do not know whether these goddesses and their vows were worshipped because they were actually asexual and did not want to have sex, or whether they were making a grave sacrifice. The difference between asexuality, chastity, and celibacy. Even today, these three get mixed up. The number of times I've had to explain that continues to rise. Celibacy and chastity are decisions made not to engage sexually with anybody, but that means you could still have sexual urges. Asexuality means those urges do not exist whether you want to have sex or not. It is the absence of sexual attraction. There may have also been some etymology mistranslations converting these from ancient Greek to modern Greek and English, and so on. Because many of them said they would swear off men, they could have meant swearing off males or swearing off any partners altogether. Because one of the words that they used to describe this vow or this way of life, Parthenos, according to Dr. Kristen Shields, means not attached to man. To me, it feels unlikely that Parthenos was a term used to describe a non-straight female, because homosexuality did exist. There's proof that Dionysus, Hermes, and Apollo were some of the many gods who were attracted to multiple sexes. And democracy was literally made by the Tyrannicides, a pair of men who had been rumored to be sexually engaged with each other. It is literally my funnest fact that the gays made democracy possible. When you add in my own biases for just generally wanting more asexual representation, it's hard for me to not see the virgin goddesses as the ace goddesses. Furthermore, there is one hymn that ultimately, I think, proves that these goddesses were asexual and not just under vows of chastity. Take this Homeric hymn in dedication to Aphrodite that I found on COI, I don't know how to pronounce that, COI.com. Golden Aphrodite Capria stirs up sweet passion in the gods and subdues the tribes of mortal man. Yet there are three hearts that she cannot bend nor yet ensnare. First is the daughter of Zeus who holds the Aegis, the bright-eyed Athena, for she has no pleasure in the deeds of golden Aphrodite, nor does laughter-loving Aphrodite ever tame in love Artemis, the huntress with shafts of gold, for she loves archery and the slaying of wild beasts in the mountains, the lyre also, and dancing and thrilling cries and shady woods and the cities of upright men. Nor yet does the pure maiden Hestia love Aphrodite's works. Of these three, Aphrodite cannot bend or ensnare the hearts. But of all others, there is nothing among the blessed gods or among mortal men that has escaped Aphrodite. The literal goddess whose domain is love and sex cannot affect these three. That has to mean that they are asexual, right? That has to mean that they are asexual or aromantic at a bare minimum. But following on from this, I have one question. Why is it just the goddesses who can be asexual? Where are the asexual men? Literally every male god in Olympus has shown some form of attraction, sexual or romantic. Hades was the more traditionalist who swore his love to his wife Persephone. Dionysus, Hermes, and Apollo had sex with anybody of any gender, and Zeus was the ultimate rapist. Yet half of the Olympian goddesses, or those who once held power on Mount Olympus, are not sexually involved. This feels odd for a patriarchal society where sex was compulsory and female sex was also controlled. But maybe it is this control that has made celibacy or asexuality forced upon some women, like I mentioned with the Vestal virgins. Thus, maybe that was why it was more common in women even today. According to Donna M. Mendigo of Capella University, in a paper that she wrote in 2022, studies made between 2004 and 2019 have shown that an average of 25% of asexuals who have taken part in their surveys or studies were male, There is very obviously gender roles and expectations being forced upon each sexuality in ancient Greece, and today, it seems, we're seeing the echoes of it. In Greek society, to be male was to be powerful in the streets and in the sheets, whereas females had a lot more room to decide how they wanted to be sexually, with many partners and being very flirtatious like Aphrodite, being loyal to one sworn partner like Hera, or to be sworn to nobody like Athena. Masculinity, according to the Greek gods, was inherently sexual. According to Taylor Allen of Texas University, sexuality was tied to the male gods but not their domain, whereas the female gods' sexualities were in fact tied to their domain. Love, marriage, and fertility for Aphrodite, Hera, and Demeter had sexual ties to it, but war and crafts, the hunt, and the home didn't need to have sexuality tied to it, thus they didn't have any sexual expression. This should make me feel empowered being someone who was assigned female at birth. That we have 3 powerful and well-respected asexual icons dating back so far in history. But this unfortunately does not leave much space for males to be happy with their own asexuality, because even as far back in ancient times, that was not common for them. When I think about the asexual males that I have seen in fiction, they are not particularly masculine men either. Todd from BoJack Horseman, Caduceus from Critical Role, hell, even SpongeBob. All males, not particularly masculine. Like, you don't see men like Geralt depicted as asexual. And now, I really want to see that. Buff warriors with wide shoulders and low V-necks and all the muscles in the world, sweat covering their dripping bodies.
They can't be ace. That defies what men think the female gaze is. They cannot be sexy and asexual at the same time.
For the record, buff men are a turnoff for me. Thus, we don't see masculine asexuals because the most legendary asexuals are female, according to history. Too many people have tied asexuality to femininity and hypersexuality to masculinity. But don't worry, that is something that I plan to fix. And I encourage you to as well. Make Geralt asexual. Well, maybe not him, because I've never really read or seen any Witcher-related content. But someone else? An asexual version of Geralt. And subscribe if you want to see more content about fantasy and asexuality. Pride Month is fast approaching, and you know I'm going to be making another asexual themed video in June, and in October as well for Asexual Awareness Week. At least one of those videos will be another fantasy themed asexual video. And be sure to check out some of my other videos on asexuality that I have around this channel, including some asexual book recs for you. And with that, I shall see you in another world.